Imagine a great empire, a glorious civilization where heroic men unite their souls with the inner spiritual solar forces and carry out great deeds and victorious feats of self-expression, thereby ascending the natural hierarchy of power and governance. The cosmic order is reflected in the human order and imbues it with its majesty and undeniable effectiveness. The order of this empire is enforced throughout its territories by the mentality that goes along with self-evident spiritual excellence. The only rebellions and enemies of this empire are not the people who are seeking freedom from it, but who are competitors with it. Then, a magician forms a cult. He performs works of magic to gain an audience. He heals the sick, he transmutes materials into other materials. He proclaims a new age of easy spiritual ascent, an age where ascetic practices, quiet contemplation, self-knowledge, stoic self-control, and heroic action are no longer necessary. The only thing necessary to attain the exalted state of immortal bliss is to believe in him and his Father. He appeals to the weak, the conquered, the hopeless, and the enslaved. He gives them an easy option to cope with their spiritual and material failures. Needless to say, he gains immense popularity quite quickly, as most populists do, with promises of happiness, belief in the dogma of equality, and complacency in mediocrity. The great empire doesn't mind this man. In fact, they believe he's politically useful, pacifying would-be rebels, giving them spiritual opiates to the downcast masses. In fact, he seems like a pretty decent guy who cares about his people. Fine, let him preach, let him found a new religion. The empire can contain a plurality of cults and beliefs. But his own people seem to dislike him. The leaders of his people had wanted to form a rebellion against the great empire for a long time. They've been trying to raise rebel armies for decades to cast out their conquerors. But this preacher claims violence will not succeed against their conqueror. He doesn't seem to be very bothered by this conqueror at all, except in difficult moments of tension when he told some people of a small town to buy swords to defend themselves against possible abuses of power from these conquerors. But other than that, he's been quite cooperative. He even told his people to give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. The empire liked the sound of that. But, of course, the elite of his society didn't like that very much. He's turning their people into pacifists when they want vengeful rebels. His cult is also blasphemous according to local religious custom. So, of course, like all personae non grati in this part of the world, he is strung up on a bit of wood and left for the birds. The imperial governor of the region tried to talk the bloodthirsty locals out of this execution, but they wouldn't hear it. The local elite and the mob wanted him dead. The governor complied. Decades after his death, his movement has grown immeasurably. Their doctrine is strange. They believe this dead man is still alive in some form, although different sects argue the details of what kind of form this is. They preach the cataclysmic end of the world, the raising of giant beasts from the ocean who will force all to worship them. These beasts perform strange wonders to baffle and terrify the people with cosmic displays of fire from the sky and lights from the seas. They talk of a city made of precious metals and stones that descends from the sky, where the believers in this allegedly resurrected dead man will rule immortal forever after this man-god returns to the earth. This strange doctrine is ridiculed and scrutinized by the brightest scholars of all the major city-states and nations. The followers of these doctrines are even heavily persecuted, their beliefs oftentimes outlawed. But for every persecuted believer, 10 more seem to pop up from the ground. They love being martyrs. They love playing the victim. It suits their politically defeatist mentality and helps them feel closer kinship to their persecuted prophet. They believe that they are persecuted for speaking the truth. So it follows that the more they are persecuted, the more truthful their doctrine must be. Over time, secretly, political officials and local leaders throughout the great empire begin to believe. The empire having become stagnant, greedy, complacent, decadent, and weak, many people like the idea of an easy, effortless spirituality. A spirituality where self-awareness and self-control are no longer necessary, where heroic and difficult action is no longer needed to prove spiritual discipline or power. All they have to do is believe in this foreign deity and hope for his grace to uplift their souls and grant them happiness. Are you telling me that I don't actually have to be an excellent, disciplined, great personality to have power? I just have to believe in this dead man god? Oh, how democratic. Sign me up. Like a virus in an organism, this cult spreads throughout the empire. It greatly appeals to weak-minded people who no longer wish to strive for and contain the solar powers of the true Hyperborean spiritual tradition. Like most ascendant civilizations at their peak, when the triumphs of their forefathers are forgotten and power is taken for granted, and there are no more earthly mountains to climb, the souls of people who fail to see the new spiritual heights that need to be conquered will fall into excess, greed, laziness, and complacency. They look out at their empire, comfortable in the easy power into which they were born, and say that there's nothing left to do but relax. It follows that they would love to adopt a new religion that encourages and rewards spiritual laziness and democratic values. This is one fatal flaw of the Pax Romana. Once your empire has conquered the world, what do you do then? What is your new cultural goal? Without a strong, vital direction to move in after the final earthly mountain has been climbed, your culture is in danger of stagnation. And with stagnation comes the temptation and seduction of foreign ideas and false promises of personal happiness that will pull your people away from their cultural spirit. And before you know it, the Roman Empire is no more. The Christian Church stands above the spiritual ruins of the empire and pushes the West onto a path of liberalism, egalitarianism, radical individualism, the search for personal happiness, a belief in universal love and charity, pacifism, moralism, and the hatred of hierarchy itself. The hatred of difference, the hatred of excellence, and a hatred and mistrust for anyone who dares to be excellent and spiritually powerful. A hatred for spiritual discipline and tradition wholesale. This is a great will to level everything to mediocrity in the name of universal equality and anti-authority, anti-hierarchy, anti-excellence, the very roots of the degenerate democratic society in which we live today. Believers in this cult hate the world. They deny the importance of the world. They turn their back on it. They believe they have a reward awaiting them in another world after death. They see the material world and the spiritual world as utterly distinct, separate, and exclusively different. Their Father's kingdom is not even of this world. In turning their back on the world, they turn their back on their civilization, on their culture, on their people, and on their own future, leaving it in the hands of some Messiah to come again. They do not act heroically to improve the world. They act in humility, meaning they humiliate themselves before their cultural enemies. They turn the other cheek when struck and allow their own people to be abused and displaced, because to fight back would be compassionless and violent, sins against their moral virtues. These people love to be martyrs, to die on their own altars. This is a religion of self-destruction, of a slow suicide. It is an alien religion, a foreign mind virus, a dogma and doctrine that came from the souls of cultural aliens who dwell in the deserts of a beleaguered, sun-parched land of nomads fearful of the sun's bright glory. It did not come from the great castles, fortresses, icy mountains, lush forests, and chilled tundra of the north, where the sun sets not in the summer, but shines its life-giving warmth on those who long to unite with its power. And using the West as its host, this alien religion has degenerated the West into the weak, liberalized husk of its former self, which we see today. It tells us to wait. Our God will save us soon. Just wait a little longer. Everything will be put right. It has us waiting and hoping for a better future that will be given to us like a gift from a benevolent father to a lazy child, when we should be acting now to build it ourselves. A Christian is like a child waiting by the window, looking out at the street, waiting for Daddy to come home after he went to the grocery store to pick up some milk. "I'll be right back," he said. That was 7 days ago. "Oh, but you're sure he's coming, he promised." When I hear the words Christian tradition, it amuses me, such an oxymoron. Christianity was the fetus of modern progressivism. It laid the groundwork for all the humanist, liberal, rationalist, capitalist, communist, nationalist, materialist, individualist, self-hating, self-deprecating culture distortions from which we have been suffering for centuries. When I hear modern Westerners who are aware of our cultural problems calling out for a return to Christian tradition, what I hear are sick patients with stage 3 cancer pining for the days when it was only stage 1 cancer. This cult has corroded our heroic conquering spirit, our will to power, our will to express our inner soul, to say, here we are spirit-made flesh and have will. We shall bring spiritual order to this world with our very presence. It turned us into weak apologetic fools, ripe and ready to be sent to the grave by the alien who hates us, who has been jealous of us for centuries, and who has been awaiting any sign of weakness so that they may strike with confidence and without fear of reprisal. They invade, steal, ravage, and murder our people. They occupy our cities, which quickly fall to waste and ruin, displacing and replacing our own people. And in the name of compassion and tolerance and fear of transgressing Christian and liberal moralisms, we allow these crimes to continue. Our own people, being corrupted by these progressive values, first introduced to us by this alien religion, have turned their backs on beauty and instead produce formless artworks of ugliness. We debauch ourselves on the altars of equality and mediocrity. When we feel our own excellence and perform according to our inner excellence, we quickly recoil and apologize for being great at some activity, and we cease our excellent action, and hand off the reins to an undeserving wastrel, saying, "Here, I'm sure you can do it just as well as I can." And we watch as our culture is eroded just that much more, in the name of being humble. This is misplaced compassion, relinquishing power to those who have not earned it, who do not deserve it. You cannot hand off power like a baton in a foot race. You either perform the duty and the task given to you by the Great Spirit, or you fail and perish. Hierarchy only exists when there is a great talent present. A hierarchy naturally forms underneath such an excellent person, as they lead by example through their earned, obvious, and proven spiritual authority and undeniable skill. A hierarchy is not some artificial bureaucratic infrastructure that can be filled by applicants. It is a natural organic process governed by spiritual intuition. Worthy leaders gain worthy followers as a matter of course. So why is it that our culture has almost entirely stopped producing such talented and worthy spiritual masters? The Catholic and Protestant churches have killed more Europeans and Americans with their inquisitions than any Saracen or foreign invader could even hope to. With friends like these, who needs enemies? We are an entire race of people with Stockholm Syndrome, loving and worshiping our captor and abuser as though he is our savior. But he promised to let us rule in a moral kingdom one day if we just believe hard enough. Meanwhile, we sit back and allow secret societies of criminals to rule our societies and lead us towards self-destruction because we were promised that some alien man-god would punish these wicked people. Eventually, one day, maybe. Our ancestors are ashamed, and our future descendants cry out in disgust. And today, this same insidious tactic, this infiltration of alien ideas, in this case literally, has begun again. A new sect is gaining a great deal of power and convincing a great number of people to believe in their worldview, their cosmology. They were once a ridiculed fringe cult, just like the Christians. They were once laughed at, their ideas scrutinized by the brightest minds from all the realms of science, philosophy, religion, academia, and folk wisdom. They have their own doctrine of universal love, an apocalyptic great awakening, and a messianic arrival of saviors. They have their own prophets and heralds, their own miracle healers and priesthood, their own conflicts within different sects and cults who argue the finer points of their cosmology, their own heretics and apostates, dogmatists and inquisitors. Their angels just happen to be aliens from outer space, and they arrive in spaceships instead of vessels of light, although luminosity is a key feature of some of these benevolent space brothers. They once told their contactees that they come from Venus, until we landed probes on Venus and saw that it could not possibly harbor biological life, so then for the following decades they conveniently started announcing that they come from the Pleiades. And worried that we might land a probe there too, they covered their base by saying they have ascended to interdimensionality. You can't land a probe in the fifth dimension. Their air of mysteriousness has been successfully maintained to promote a sense of wonder and reverence in the minds of the gullible. Where once their contactees and advocates were uncredentialed farmers and HVAC workers, eccentrics who dabbled with the more imaginative lifestyle choices, and airplane pilots who were told to shut the hell up about their experiences, now we have government officials, CIA officers, pop culture celebrities, and doctors of science claiming to be contactees and believers. These people also claim to have special privileged knowledge about these beings and their plans for humanity. It has been a slow process that began with the likes of Eric von Däniken and George Van Tassel writing books and making convincing arguments for the existence of alien space gods responsible for the creation of humanity. A new creation myth was taking shape on the fringes of our society. It became slightly more mainstream when Andrei Puharich began working to popularize the experiences of Uri Geller, the famous spoonbender, who was allegedly a contactee with otherworldly beings, having had his own Paul on the way to Damascus moment in a Tel Aviv garbage dump. They were on primetime mainstream international television a few times. It also develops more mystically by way of trance channelers who produced books such as Oaspi, the Urantia book, The Law of One, aka The Raw Material, among others. This is what really began to galvanize the space alien theory as a spiritual path and religious institution by way of New Agers and spiritually oriented people who were desperately seeking better alternatives to Christianity and scientific materialism, which had utterly failed to provide meaning and spiritual upliftment for our culture. These were lost sheep looking for a new flock, a new shepherd. UFO cults began to form, such as Realism and the Umo group and countless dozens of others who have their own creation myths. For example, the Real group believe that the Elohim are really advanced human aliens. You know, the Elohim from the Old Testament. They're just advanced human aliens who cloned themselves and colonized the earth with humans many thousands of years ago. And that's where we came from. The Garden of Eden was some geographical location where these first human clones were created. This ever-growing religion, or these religions, plural, but it really is one meta-religion because their doctrine might be superficially different, but the fundamental ideology is the same. But anyway, this ever-growing religion has taken yet another manifestation in the form of the doctrine of star seeds. People who believe they are earthly reincarnations of aliens from other solar systems, and they are here to civilize us savages. They come from far superior, more peaceful, more advanced civilizations, and they are carrying the alien man's burden to right our wrongs and whip us into shape so we can become upright members of the intergalactic community. These New Age hippie imperialists are just so disgusted by our barbarity and desire for authority. They are here to spread democracy galaxy-wide and accelerate progressive, liberal, anti-hierarchical evolution. Except some of them are straight-up Nazis, so there seems to be some disagreement and sectarianism on this point. The secret society seems to be playing all sides of the political game and biding their time, seeing which way the wind blows before they make their final mainstream political push. Just like the early Christians. Would they be Gnostic? Would they be Nestorian? Would they hijack Romanity, as the Catholics would? They had to wait and see what would be most palatable for the mainstream masses, constantly taking surveillance of the public, listening and seeing what they like about this new cult, and fine-tuning it to be the most palatable, mainstream, acceptable version of itself before they would conquer. These UFO movements have tended to appeal to the fringe elements of our society. It has since become necessary for this cult to now move in from the fringes and become mainstream. It began with a popular show called Ancient Aliens and rapidly took on a more official, government-approved facade with the likes of CIA officer Lou Elizondo, who claims to have worked for the Pentagon, secretly tracking UFO activity, CIA officer James Semivan, who claims he is in psychic contact with alien beings who secretly work with governments around the world, CIA officer John Ramirez, who claims that aliens exist in parallel dimensions to our own and trying to hybridize with humans, and CIA officer Daryl Sims, who claims aliens are genetically created by the shadow government and are not space aliens at all. There's also a congressional hearing where a military officer by the name of Donald Moultrie said that independent UFO and paranormal research should be outlawed by the American federal government, and only the American federal government should be allowed to tell you what to think about aliens, UFOs, and paranormal phenomena. Interesting take. Also, take a look recently, over the last few years, at all the pop stars and movie stars who have publicly proclaimed their belief in extraterrestrial life and their hopes that they will invade the Earth to save us from ourselves. A whole slew of such characters. Then we have a real push from the government official side for the more spiritual and religious angle, from people like Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, who likes to share her own New Age views on the spiritual interdimensional alien theory with people like Joe Rogan, claiming she heard about it from government sources. Avi Loeb, an astrophysicist from Harvard, who thinks every big rock in space is an alien artificial intelligence who is actually the real Messiah we've all been waiting for. And Chaim Ashed, an Israeli intelligence officer from Unit 81, who has been surreptitiously supporting these efforts for years and has recently gone public with his views about secret alien involvement in human affairs and his privileged position of dealing with their technology and disseminating it throughout human society in reverse-engineered form, very similar to Lieutenant Colonel Philip Corso's story. He wrote a book about it called The Day After Roswell, where he claims he took alien technology, gave it to research corporations, technology corporations, told them he found it from the Nazis or the French during the war, and that we need to turn it into commercially accessible things that we can sell for our society. Things like fiber optic cabling, Velcro, Kevlar, night vision, digital camera technology, and so on. He wrote a book about it, claiming that it was actually all from aliens and UFOs and not from the Nazis or the French. This is the same slow creep tactic used by the Christian cults to overthrow the Roman Empire. Start at the fringes, offer easy answers to deep ontological questions and human mysteries, where we come from, where we're going, that sort of thing. Promise a better future of happiness and the solving of all of our problems. And then move in from these fringes by influencing popular personalities and politicians until they had a critical mass of belief and acceptance in the population to where they could change the world order and become the elite of a new type of government with minimal popular resistance. And then they became the de facto world government in worldview for 1,500 years. Think about that. A fringe cult with delusional beliefs that were completely and inherently anti-European became the de facto European government in worldview for 1,500 years. So you can laugh at these UFO cults all you want. You can think, oh, they're stupid as hell, they'll never have any power. And you will be vastly underestimating our new enemy. Don't make that mistake. Here we are today reaping what we have sown from adopting this Christian religion. Total liberal degeneracy and self-destruction. Our society is plagued by seemingly insurmountable problems, and we're at risk of falling into the same seductive trap that the Romans fell for. They fell for the alien religion from a foreign land, known as Christianity, hoping for their alien Messiah to swoop in and solve their problems. We are falling for another alien religion, this time literally, hoping that People from space or the higher dimensions are going to come here and save us from ourselves. It is another religion of weakness, of hoping and waiting, not lifting a finger, putting our power in the hands of others. If we are to avoid this deception, this seduction, we must dig deep within our own roots and call upon our own ancestral spirit. Christianity, coming from a foreign land, from a fringe group of people, had nothing whatsoever to do with Europe. It was a rootless religion that ended up violently burning and destroying the roots of Europe, erasing its history and declaring all pre-Christian heritage to be the work of Satan, eradicating the memory of our own people. This new alien religion is the same. It claims that humanity is too stupid and primitive to have built the great monuments and structures that we marvel at. The pyramids, Machu Picchu, and all the other magnificent monolithic structures could not have possibly been built by you stupid monkeys. No, aliens did it. You're too stupid. Too weak. You have no heritage, you have no roots, you have no magnificent skills, you have no power. You are stupid and worthless, and you need to be saved and guided by beings from another world who are far superior to you. Just like the Christians who believe they are in darkness and need salvation and grace from some otherworldly kingdom, too wretched to do it on their own. Now, I'm not suggesting we reach into some primordial pre-Christian past. We cannot move backward in time, and even if we could, it would be inappropriate and unsuitable for the task of the future. We need not resuscitate the corpse of our pagan past, falling into the same trap of those weak ones who yearn for the resurrection of a long-dead man-god, or those who lamented the Christianization of their people and the loss of their culture, and yearned for the return of King Arthur or the return of Frederick the Great, and began their own retrogressive cults of hope and waiting. Spiritual traditions are in constant flux, at least superficially. They adapt to the times that they're in and offer solutions to the problems being faced. But these superficial fluctuations that occur over time are simply the different masks worn by the true, eternal, Hyperborean solar tradition. Those core principles never change. That core is that we are the Spirit made visible, and we carry out the will of the Spirit. Like the rays of the sun, we bring order and light to the dark, chaotic earthly powers. The chthonic, telluric, materialistic, chaotic, dark, writhing lunar forces of the untamed lower nature submit to our will, and we rectify all that is in our presence, bringing it to an exalted, spiritualized state. We prove this by our works and actions, by our indomitable heroism that brings us victory. So even when the superficial manifestations of our tradition change, the roots are always there. The innermost spirit of it always shines through and asserts itself. If this spirit does not shine through, it is because the tradition we are currently following is not our own, but the creation of some cultural alien. We must reach into our hearts, look deep into our own souls with not only individual self-awareness, but with cultural and historical self-awareness, and dream up something new that solves the problems that lay before us, breathes vitality back into ourselves while being rooted in our own true, eternal spiritual heritage. We each as individuals can do this and live by it. We don't need to be told what to think by others, especially by those who claim to have authority on the matter without proving such authority. Why would we take spiritual advice from congressmen, CIA officers, and astrophysicists? That's insanity. Their authority is faked. It's fake. It's rooted in nonsense, bureaucracy, and rationalism, and credentials. They're not our spiritual leaders. Look to your inner sun, your own solar spirit. After all, Christ is a solar deity, as can be easily seen with the wealth of astronomical and solar allegories encoded into the text of the Bible, thanks to the Hellenic writers of the New Testament who still possessed at least a glimmer of their Apollonian solar tradition. The same allegories which are used to describe other solar deities in most cultures, like Tammuz, Osiris, Horus, Mithras, Apollo, Balder, Odin, among many others, all born on December 25th, died and resurrected with the equinox, had 12 followers as signs of the zodiac. All that astrological, astronomical allegory is there in all of these cultures, and it's a New Testament around the figure of Christ as well. So if you truly wish to believe in Christ, in some messianic return of this figure, you can look for the transposition of this solar force into a new religious solar symbol, more appropriate to the Hyperborean cultural spirit. A new religious impulse that puts aside the liberalism, egalitarianism, self-defeat, and will to anarchy and death offered by this old Semitic religion, and adopt a spirit more befitting your ancestry. A spirit of self-assertion and spiritual power, a will to leadership and hierarchy, of self-dominance and self-discipline that allows just and righteous dominance and discipline of the external world. Adopt an attitude that honors your ancestors instead of belittling them, chastising them, accusing them of demonic paganism and evil actions, being ashamed of them and their alleged crimes against humanity. You attack your own roots because a cultural alien demands that you do so? And afraid of being labeled compassionless, you obey the alien impulse and say, "Yes, we're evil and weak. I'm so sorry. Allow me to repent. I am in darkness and must be brought to light by the grace of an alien God who demands that I turn my back on my ancestral traditions. Please forgive me for my wrongdoing, my waywardness, and my people's ancient evils." How can the spiritual light itself be in darkness? You are the divine spark, the inner light made manifest in the objective world of matter and forms. A light that shines unto itself, self-effulgent, can never be in darkness. Sure, it may be obscured by the age of iron, the Kali Yuga, the age of the wolf, the age of ignorance and anti-spirituality in which we currently live. But that does not make you weak. It does not make you overcome by darkness or in need of grace. It simply means you must work that much harder to assert your inner spirit, your historical necessity, your will to conquer the darkness of this world by calling upon that light and having it shine all the more brightly in contrast to the debauchery and corruption which surrounds it. If you really must believe in the Christ Messiah, let that inner renewal be your Messiah. Do not invite the Christ from outside yourself and into your heart like some alien ghost that you must summon and invite into your home. But understand that the solar logos has always been within you, and you must simply help it to shine forth. So again, we must create something new, reaching into our heart of hearts in full cultural, historical, and spiritual self-awareness. We must foster a new creative impulse from our deepest solar tradition and give it a new symbol to infuse with power, a new movement to carry us forward, a new set of arms and armors to subdue the chaos and darkness of this world, a new religious and cultural ethos that allows us to express our innermost selves, one that is truly ours. To put this into historical perspective, even 10 minutes of research into cultural and religious history will show that every religious tradition in every culture lasts roughly 2,000 years before it dies and is replaced with a new one. Perhaps this has something to do with the precession of the equinox, each age lasting roughly 2,000 years. Perhaps religious ideas are living organisms with a set lifespan. Regardless, it seems that the average time limit on any given religion is 2,000 years. So remind me, how old is Christianity? If you do not want the new Western religion to be yet another one of rootless weakness and alien worship, you must reach within yourself and call upon your true spirit and allow it to express itself.